Mr Speaker, I absolutely support this bill. It is a good piece of legislation and we should vote on it immediately. Thank you.
This is a split call. Honourable Clayton Cosgrove.
Absolutely. Well, we know after that contribution that John Hayes was never a paper boy. Never a paper boy. We know after that contribution that Simon Bridges, I'm told, recently made a speech in Tauranga and got mistaken for a paper boy. But let's do some analysis based on John Hayes' speech. John Hayes painted this rosy, bizarre view of the New Zealand economy that in his little world, or probably big world actually, exists, but doesn't exist here in New Zealand. He talked about employment. Well, here's a couple of figures for Mr Hayes as he sort of, I think the word is shuffles, to the corner of the House, and it's this. 84,000 young people not in work or training. Great legacy for Mr Hayes. Unemployment rate of 162,000, of course, and 40,000 manufacturing jobs lost. What a wonderful legacy this government provides. A tax switch, which of course was actually a tax swindle, which they say in government was fair, where the top 10% got 40 to 44% of the tax cut. And what do we know? I think Russell Norman referred to it in a different way, but what do we know that people on the top generally do if they get a windfall tax cut, because they've got enough discretionary income anyway? They either pay off the debt or put it in the bank. It's not spent, generally, it's not recycled, it doesn't provide the blood into the body of the economy that we need, and by the way, more importantly, it's not fair. So a few of those people over there, and I think probably given our incomes in this place, we're probably, top 5%, top 10%. We all benefited in this chamber given our salaries. The top 10% got 44% of the tax cuts, and the rest of New Zealand languished. And then they whipped up GST, and guess who that hit? Not their mates, of course, not those on the top 10%. Yes, they paid the increase in GST, but of course if you're on incomes like ours in this chamber and above, we have a bit of discretionary and a bit of income cushion, unlike those on the bottom. And then you look at this bill, which is, as others have said, all about simple tinkering. The great reform, the paperboy tax not on this bill, of course, but that was the great reform, the big economic and taxation hit. This was a great reforming, visionary government. Put the boot into the old paper boy or paper girl. They cut the contribution to KiwiSaver, and then the great reform was to put it back up again, all over the show. And what does that do? That simply, as in Muldoon's time, when the Muldoon government bribed people with their own money back in the 70s, and that's the truth, bribe people with their own money in superannuation, all that does is undermine confidence in KiwiSaver, when actually I would have thought across the House what we wanted was to bolster the numbers in KiwiSaver, give people the confidence to enter that scheme and contribute. But they're not going to do that with a government that tinkers, slashes, burns, reinstates and messes around with that particular policy. So what a great legacy this crowd leaves. They have 1,000 people a week going to Oz, 1,000 people a week. We know that 17,000 people, tradespeople, people apparently, and they're right, we need in this country, in my province of Canterbury for instance, 17,000 technically trained, highly skilled New Zealanders across the ditch, because this crowd won't train anybody. They say they're going to bring people in from overseas. Of course eventually we're going to need people from overseas, but we need them now of course because this crowd refused to train anyone. You can't expect an unemployed person to take a business person to take on an unemployed person with no skills without training. Is that it? 1 minute. Sorry? Oh, we didn't abolish the Apprenticeship Act. No. We introduced the modern apprenticeship scheme and trained thousands of people. That was that mob. In fact, that was the Honourable Lockwood Smith who actually put that little doozy in. But you can't expect a business person to employ somebody for a skilled job when they're not trained. So what's going to happen is business people will take people from overseas because they can't wait, and nor can earthquake victims wait another 2 years till you train a young person to get it to become the plumber or the carpenter to build and reconstruct the house. So what a great legacy these people leave. No plan, no strategy, flog some assets off. the second worst current account deficit in the OECD. Who's ahead of us on that? Greece. What a wonderful place to aspire to. And where the projections from the IMF is we'll go from number 2, we will be number 1 in something. We'll be worse off than Greece in terms of current account deficit next year.
Dr. Kennedy Graham.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Green Party rises again to address this taxation, annual rates, returns, filing